Going with the flow.
That's it.
Yeah, it's almost like we actually we've almost always gone with the flow, and now we're going to try and like use the flow, but also be a bit more structured because it's a nice balance to have the two, isn't it?
It is. And you know what? I think really what you're learning is just to be more conscious in the flow.
Yeah, there you go. That's
cool.
a nicer way of putting it.
Yeah, I had like recently like because there's all the business stuff and things kind of hit me left of center where it's all money and stuff, and I haven't been attached to money and things, but then with the business and everything, it grows, and I felt myself like in the last few weeks getting more attached to like outcomes of money and all of that stuff. And I was like, whoa, I need to take a step back and just, it's hard, because you start to get attached to your lifestyle or things like that.
Mm.
And then you're like, oh shit, I got to like pull back and just be okay. You know, like if everything was to go belly up, you got to be okay with having money. You got to be okay with everything going bust. You got to be okay with just whatever comes your way.
And that's not always easy.
I think that's
easy. That's
the key to life, eh?
that is, that is. It's the key to life, to balance, but ultimately to know that your state of peace and contentment is an inside job.
Yeah.
Yeah, fully.
And that, because that's really what you're saying, being able to fall back on the fact that I'm okay no matter what's happening on the outer, and that whatever I'm creating consciously or unconsciously, I'm okay with, because I realize I am creating it for a reason, even if it's not in the highest potential at times, yeah. or not feeling like it's in the highest potential.
Yeah, I think
so.
When you did the workshop here, because whenever there's workshops, you always take about one or two big pieces of gold away that you can remember, right? It's like when you do the CHEK courses, I remember a few things out of the million things I've learned. And the biggest bit of gold I took away from that was that we all have free will, and that you can refer to whatever you want to call it, right? Your divine intervention or your inner guidance, or you refer to this almost nurturing energy to get guidance in those times of big decision making, I guess, or stress or whatever it is, and that was such a nice way of putting it, that we're all free, but when you want a bit of a help, just ask. I think it feels nice.
It does. It feels so nice.
Yeah.
And do you mean just like ask the universe for some support?
Yeah, just ask the universe, or even just ask, well, it's the same thing. Ask, how we all know the answer almost.
Yeah.
Right? That just referring to that, like, and knowing, oh, okay, this is the way I feel, this is what my heart's telling me. I remember Paul said it years ago, was look with your eyes and ears, but let your heart be your compass. And I heard that in a podcast he said a long time ago, and that was the one podcast that made me actually, it's crazy how a podcast can change your whole life, right? But that was the one, I heard that in a podcast driving through the desert in Karatha, working in the mines. And that was sort of the thing that's like, oh yeah, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be teaching CHEK or the health model. And I just needed to hear that. Isn't that amazing? It's from one podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's like with Ram Dass's podcast. I listen to it every night. And exactly what you said just before, Joe, about like just, it's an inside job. That's exactly what Ram Dass was saying last night. And it was so helpful. There's so many times where I've just been listening to that podcast and it's been like, oh, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like I escape back into myself, my heart cave, where I can just be, oh, actually nothing outside really matters. Like all you got to do is control this internal environment and be happy. It's like, well, not control it. You know what I mean? Just surrender to it. Surrender to it. Control it. Yeah. Control it. Choose your words carefully, Persian. Yeah. I'm controlling my inner environment.
Yeah, so we might have to have a little discussion about that.
Surrender experience. Yeah.
And the new Path of Light part 2 is recently started too. It's Neil and Jason. I got my roommates.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, recently started that. They loved it. Hey.
Yeah.
It's like, it's because they got so much going on in their life right now, but they still got time for that. You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. For you at the moment, you're in Sydney right now?
No, we've made the big move up to the Northern Rivers.
Bangalow, Byron, or
Uh, Pottsville. So Cudgera
Pottsville?
Creek,
Oh,
about
yes.
5 minutes outside of Pottsville.
Beautiful. You can tell by the beautiful greenery outside. It's just
Yeah,
so
yeah,
peaceful there, isn't it? It's beautiful.
And how do you?
it is.
Because you've been in Sydney for how long now? Well, you were in Sydney for how long?
Oh, look, pretty much my entire time of being in Australia since 98.
Wow.
98, I came out, traveled for a year, and then landed, in Sydney and really have been in different suburbs of Sydney since
Yeah.
then.
And is it a huge change for you? And how do you feel about that change?
Oh, it's been a long time coming. It's learnt
Yeah.
me patience along the way. Um, I've wanted to be up here in this region for many years. And of course, having the business Bavana Organic Farm and Cooking School that brought me up, every month for the classes. So I just continued to fall in love with the region more and more. And, as a foodie and a health, this whole region lends itself, so as does, up on the Sunshine Coast as
Mm,
well. I know you've got a great, community up there, of health minded, but here as well with the food and just the organic growers and the providors and the um, you know artisan um, providers that are really, showcasing their gifts here on the land. And there's a real feel. It's funny, Susie and I were just walking along the beach this morning, and we commented on just how much more relaxed and friendly people are up here.
mm, mm.
Like they stop and just have a conversation with you.
Yeah, right.
You're lucky to go for a walk in the morning in Sydney and get a good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know
What?
Here, it's not just a good morning, but it's, how are you? And they'll, you don't know them, they'll just stop and you're in a conversation for 5 minutes. And there's the change of pace. And you really feel that in people's field. They're a lot slower. They're not in the rat race of a big city, and you feel that in their vibration. And so then, you naturally feel that, when you're with them. Things are
Mm.
so much more relaxed, a slower pace. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Loving exploring the different communities up here. There's all these little beach towns that,
Mm.
go up along the coast. There's markets, there's farmers markets
Mm.
like every day somewhere different. Like my dream.
Yeah, you and your food, like God, you just that would really unlock a whole lot of creative energy for you, even with your food again, because you have access to all this stuff that probably doesn't cost you an arm and a leg as much anymore.
Yeah, totally. And trying new stuff that, I tried a South American fruit the other day from this guy, at the markets in Byron markets, and they just specialize in, particular tropical fruits. And was tasting a few of their different ones, and just, yeah, it's just so cool. It's so
Yeah,
cool to.
that is cool. And I can even I feel like you're even talking a little bit slower than usual too, just now that you're living there, like we all do. Well, actually, I still talk pretty fast. But I actually just came back from Sydney after I spent just a week there, and I felt the same way. And I was right in the middle of the city. I was in the Surrey Hills. I'm sure you know it. Um, and I felt the feeling I feel like an ant there. And I feel like, and I know it's just a feeling, right? But I feel like life isn't as important, if that's the right word. It doesn't mean as much or something. Like, and I felt that everyone was just doing their thing and trying to get ahead, and that's the feeling I got. I don't know, and that's in my own head still. But as soon as I came back, I know exactly what you mean. You feel like you're more human or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to describe. But it was just a gnarly sort of place. And the routine of the life there. I remember looking for a park and saw these dogs in a park, and it was this tiny little park. And there was people there, but I was like, whoa, like a lot of people aren't getting sunlight here because there's always a building covering it when I was in the city. And I could just feel that the energy was going to work, get pissed on the weekend in your suit, and then and then rinse and repeat. And I was like, whoa, that is that city life a lot of the time, right? Unless you make it different.
It's a lot to do with like the world life. When I was in New York City, wherever I've traveled, I've experienced that exact same thing where it's like, there's a disconnect. I was in a city of 8 million people, but I felt so disconnected and so alone in such a big place full of people where there should be, I mean, maybe it's just where I was at the time, but it feels, I know exactly what you're saying with cities. It just feels like that. Yeah, there's just so many people in one spot and they're all hustling.
And beliefs that you need to be there to get ahead too. Because the world's changed now with the internet, you know what I mean? Depends what you're doing.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's, one of the many gifts out of the pandemic has been, a real shaking up of business culture and company culture. And a really shaking up of how companies and management organizations, I guess HR, how they're looking to support. And I can't remember the study that I read, but there was actually a study done that, obviously, and for companies like Deloitte's, I know that I've got a couple of friends that work for Deloitte's, and their whole company policy across every country that they're in is now you have sole choice to work from home or in the office.
Wow, that's fucking cool.
Freedom.
That's across the board. And there was a study done to really show that, HR's concerned that if you're working from home, you're not as productive, you don't get as much done. And they actually did a study of this, during the COVID period, where obviously that's where everyone was, and those that could still do their work, their job from home. There was a study to carry out to actually show that there was no evidence for that whatsoever.
Wow.
That in actual fact, people were still as productive, and if not, in some industries, more so. And that there was a report of, employees feeling that for the first time there was more life-work balance from having the choice of managing their own schedule in and around work life. So
choice is the big one. Hey, like choosing to work and choosing not to allows you to really do some good work. I feel like people would be so much happier at home because they can be in the comfort of their own home, but they can choose to say have a 15-minute break and a tea, and then just like gives them that state. So you can see how that study would totally be correct, hey, because they'll just be like, oh fuck, now I've got all this energy to just go hard for an hour and a half, and then have a little break, go hard. That's definitely how I worked, and I loved it. Go for a quick swim at the beach, like that's true freedom.
Are you?
And there was what was interesting though, that there was a small percentage of people that really did struggle with either autonomy, or they really struggled not to be in that team environment, which also speaks a lot to that collective consciousness that when you are part of a team and you come into work, and that Zoom calls and Zoom meetings wasn't the same for them. It was that banter, interactive banter during the day that was obviously for whatever their meeting in their life, in their world, and in their consciousness was part of them feeling a part of something.
Yeah, fully.
Are you got any CHEK courses coming up?
Just finished HLC2 down in Cronulla. I'm always pulled up for how I pronounce words and places. For me, it's Cronulla. So I've just finished 5 days down there a couple of weeks ago, just before we hit into Easter. That was awesome. We were at Matt Walden's new establishment, so his business, the Health Hub, that runs out of a place called True Woo.
Yeah, Matt Sorensen.
Sorry, Matt Sorensen. I said Matt Walden.
I get them confused
Matt Sorensen.
Too,
yeah. I was just on a call the other day with Matt Walden. That's why.
Yeah, we actually did the workshop there at his place in Cronulla. It was great. It's an amazing little place.
Yeah. Isn't it? Great location.
Yeah.
2 minutes walk from the beach. Love it.
We were we're thinking about hosting a lot of the CHEK workshops here. Apparently, they reached out to us a few days ago, Gavin, and just reached out, so we know what you guys are doing there, blah blah blah. But we want to really set up in Australia a bit more. And if you just think about, for me, what a trip that is. That, it was only, what was it? It was probably
3 years.
It was 2019. I did HLC2 with you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I didn't even have one client then. So it shows you how quick it can go and it can change and that was the end of 2019, I believe. So it's like, it's so quick that the work and yours and Paul's work and just ideas implemented into my own life, and like not even to the fullest potential, right? As we all know, can actually completely change my life from the 9-to-5 scaffolding job that I wasn't in love with and deep down knew, to now, like, I wake up every morning now and it's like, I feel blessed. I feel like, it's like almost we figured something out that other people haven't. That's the feeling I get. And I almost want to share that to the others, which is what everyone does when they learn information, right? I'm like, doesn't have to be so hard, Yeah. So it's just crazy how quick that can happen.
Well, it comes back to the fact that, that one little sentence in that podcast from Paul all those years ago,
it does, yeah.
It opened, it activated some consciousness in you, and it activated a resonance to a truth that you were hearing in that moment. And you've started to do exactly that. Listen, look, but ultimately allow the compass of your consciousness, or your consciousness, direct you. And, not the consciousness of your mind and your intellect so much, that has always got the agendas and the boxes that it needs to tick and, all these goals that it thinks it needs to achieve. But really that part of you that's always, discerning enough to say, is this really going to fulfill my cup? Is this really going to, expand my consciousness, uplift me, and allow me to share my potential with others,
What,
and that's what you're doing.
I love, because it's in my, I guess, friendship group before I met Jake, and most people, especially males in their early 20s, none of this, you don't hear any of this, right? And there was no in part that it was coming from anywhere, right? It wasn't really coming from YouTube unless you click on a couple of those videos. It definitely wasn't coming from the TV, and that's all we had. And it definitely wasn't coming from the school culture. So there was no connection to, it was like, even when we spoke about God back then, we all just shunned it because it was only a Christian God, right? That's all we knew. Christian God, man and skull, like bullshit, But now I had no connection to that, right? But I was still yearning for it a little bit. Everyone is, right? And then when I met Jake and we was just chatting about like death, and I remember he's like, have you heard of the Tibetan Book of the Dead? And I was like, what is that, dude? I was like, just these unusual things. And then when I did HLC1 with you, and that was more really the superficial stuff, right? But when we got to HLC2, it's like it gives you this, opens you up to this world to then go exploring into these other, like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, Joe Dispenza's, all that sort of stuff that can help someone so much. And people don't know where to go. They think they got to go have some pills a lot of the time and go to the doctor and say it's all whatever in their head. Because the culture is sick in certain ways.
Yeah, the culture's hard. Lately, I've been having a massive shift on like letting people go in my life, and I don't know what it is at the moment the universe is teaching me, but I am letting go of a lot of old things. And lately it's been really scary to kind of do that, but also I feel so connected to the people that I listen to. Like, could be yourself, it could be anyone who's really a real truth sayer. I feel really connected to that, and it's almost like I feel supported by them, even though it's a podcast or even though it's a YouTube thing. I just feel like they're all my friends. But I don't have a lot of them around here. I feel, like I've got Callan and a few others, and we all stick together and stuff like that. But the old part of my life seems to be dying, but I want to hold on to it a little bit. And it's like,
what is it that you want to hold on to, I wonder? Hey, because I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
is it that nostalgic feeling?
I think it's a tribal family thing, or it's approval. I want approval. I want to be approved by everyone.
Yeah. Well, just doing a therapy session. I should
Yeah,
just
yeah.
watch.
I know. She brings it out of us.
Yeah.
God damn it, Joe.
We're entering into an inner child therapy session here.
Yeah. Fully. Hey, yeah.
With what was your, like, for me, saying Paul, hearing Paul's work, and your work was what gave me the nudge. What was your first touch coming from the UK, from your routine into, I guess, would you say, towards spirituality, or towards just owning your shit is another way of putting it, right? Was there one moment?
Yeah, look, I think, it's a great question, and I'm asked that often, on different interviews and podcasts. And, hindsight, wonderful thing, isn't it? You can look back at these experiences that you've had, and although you might not be consciously conscious at that time of the experience. And what I mean by that is you might not be conscious that it's such a catalyst for change for you, because you might just be reacting to something going on in your life and creating change out of reaction, which, at the time can feel chaotic and full of drama and, full of conflict. And when I look back, that was probably, a huge catalyst for change for me. When you're asking me, was there a pivotal point in which I started to turn inwards to really, activate that seeker in me, for that spiritual connection to myself? It was probably in my early 20s when I was coming to terms with my sexuality. Mm-hmm. And, I was meeting all of that internal fear, judgment, fear of rejection, fear of judgment of others, fear of not fitting into society, fear of the unknown. If I follow this path, where's it going to take me? Is it going to be a lonely one? Am I choosing the harder path of the two? All of these things. And I had to, meet within that all of my parenting programming. I had to meet within that all of my unconscious programming around right, wrong, good, bad, spirituality, what God says is okay and not okay, and meet that illusion and delusion of this belief that God's something outside of us, that we have to obey certain rules in order to be looked after and cared for. And I confronted all of that very early on through coming to terms with my sexuality, because I had to come up front. I got slapped about a lot with all of those beliefs as they came to the surface. And I really had to, look at them and go, is this really my truth? And is this a belief that I want to continue to buy into and energize? And if it's not, then where do I go to walk a different path? And it's interesting, years ago, like nowadays, I don't even think about being gay. Like I don't even, like it just is,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't even, it's like someone went, "Are you gay?" I'm like, oh yeah. That's right.
It's just a word.
It's just,
it just is.
Like, it just is. Whereas, of course, back then it was all about hiding it and being ashamed of it and feeling guilty around those impulses. And so I really do feel that whole period in my life, of meeting those parts of me and having to dive deep into acknowledging and accepting and embracing, um, those wants, needs, and desires of me, and the bigger questions that they had me ask about myself. Um, was I choosing? Where's that line between,
Mm.
what we're choosing, and again, it's my power lied in what I was choosing in relationship to the energy that I was meeting. That's where my power was, because did I go out there and say one day, oh, you know what, I'm going to be gay?
Mm.
you know that's not how it happens. You're meeting this energy within you, and your power lies in how you choose to meet that energy.
Wow.
Mm.
And
That's such a good way of thinking about anything in life, isn't it?
well, that is your power,
Yeah.
because you know it's often we get caught up in thinking our power is in, you know it's a big subject to talk about, but often we think we're victims of the universe, right? And things happen to us, and we forget where our power is. And whilst we can't always control what unfolds in our life, because we are co-creators, we're co-creating with the universe, and we're co-creating with a whole lot of consciousness and energy that you're not even conscious of, all your unconscious programs that are constantly co-creating with you, but you're not aware of it. And so, at times you attract things into your life, not consciously, but unconsciously. And those things, are there, you know, to give you an opportunity to become aware, because the choice that you then do have, and where your power then does lie, is in how you're going to meet that. How are you going to meet that energy that's just been brought to you through this situation or event or person, or an energy that's, in my example, rose up within me.
Mm.
And how was I going to meet that energy and that experience? And there's our choice. Lots of people choose to deny it, live in the closet about it. Lots of people choose to live two lives, and the stress of doing so. That's all choice, and that's how there's your power right there. Same way as if we're choosing chaos and drama and conflict,
Mm.
still our choice, because power is our choice.
That's golden.
Yeah. Just like,
Speaks on many levels.
yeah. Do you have like for the logical and people like myself and others that want 1, 2, 3, 4s? Like, I guess that is like, say you energy comes towards you like that. Do you have your own system in place to check in with yourself? Do you have your own like tools, or say for someone listening?
Yeah, I do. I do, and they're probably simpler than you think. In that, we've all heard, when you're meeting an energy. Just this morning I met an energy, and I could have done better at using my tools. So, let's just all remind each other that we're human. But that is one
Yeah.
of my tools. One of
Mm.
my tools is to remind myself that I am human. I'm in a process of learning. And that one tool alone, of being able to talk to myself in a way that honors my humanness, it allows me to experience less self-judgment than what I used to. I'm not saying that I'm judgment-free by any means, but I certainly don't go into the same level of self-judgment and belittling over my actions and reactions that I used to. So, that is a tool in itself, is to honor my humanness, and that I too am learning to become conscious and consciously conscious. And I'm learning from my reactions. And sometimes when I am more consciously conscious, then a tool to take a deep breath and count to 10 before I say anything or do anything, and just allow myself to meet that energy and feel that energy and meet what that energy is activating within me, whatever emotion that energy triggers within me, because we're talking about how to better self-manage ourselves. Yes. And in doing that, we have to become aware of what our triggers are, and we have to become aware of when we're being triggered, and what is it to be triggered. And to be triggered is to go into reaction with some sort of energy that doesn't feel good. Right? Just doesn't feel good. That there's a better part of you that you could be feeling and expressing right now. And so, when we're triggered, then we're often feeling what we call in our schools, separation energy. We're experiencing a part of ourself that's gone into anger or judgment or jealousy or resentment or revengefulness or victimhood, or whatever that is, that energy that creates us to feel in that moment in reaction, in separation, where you become defensive or offensive, depending on the situation. And managing that requires us to, walk a path of choosing to become more conscious, wanting to walk a path where you're learning about yourself to do better. If we know better, then we can start to do better. But, to know is to come into being the observer rather than reacting all the time. And, coming into observing what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and understanding that those feelings and thoughts are always attached to a belief. Always. They're always attached to some kind of belief you have about something, or they're attached to, a habit, or they're attached to even an attachment. You said it before, I get attached to my lifestyle, but there will be a belief there about your lifestyle, that started to create that attachment. And at what point were you conscious of starting to create a belief that's created an attachment to the lifestyle that you're now living?
So you go behind it all to the belief. When you get to the belief, is it just about being the watcher of the belief as well, and letting whatever comes up inside you?
That's the first step. It's a really interesting, because we're talking about energy, even through the words that we're using.
Yeah, it's not words.
They hold. Yeah, it's energy.
It's energy.
Right? And so, often when people are asking questions around, how can I change my belief system? They're asking it from the mind that wants practical steps, A, B, and C. And the thing with that, from my observations, my experiences of trying to do that myself,
Yeah, me too.
Is that the energy and the consciousness that our mind, our mental body, and our intellect holds is a vibration that keeps us navigating our steps through right and wrong, good and bad, and keep navigating our steps through polarity. And so when we try to change our belief system through our minds, we are often caught up in polarity, which means that, we're just going from one end of the seesaw to the other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, can you change a belief in that, through that way? Yes, you can, but is the belief that you are adopting in replacement to the old one, is that going to bring you into a centered place, or just put you in the polarity on the other side? Right? Have you just chosen another side to sit on? Yeah, another camp to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which again, comes with all of its conditions held in polarity. And so, what I've learned is that to really resolve a belief that doesn't support you, you're really working with a vibration of consciousness. And this is what's sort of challenging to have a conversation around it, because again, we're talking about something that requires the mind to really open up and allow itself to have an experience. And that requires the mind to lift out of the third dimension, where it's all ruled by right, wrong, good, bad, and goals and outcomes, and allow ourselves to really have an experience of what it would be like to open our mind and our heart's consciousness to a place where we can be acknowledging and accepting of what is without needing to change it. And that's really challenging for the mind, because the mind wants to change it. It's not good enough. It's not serving me. Let's change it. And the alchemy of consciousness, the alchemy of healing, it takes place in that first step of acknowledging and accepting something. One of my biggest lessons, guys, in the process of change and transformation, meeting an energy that I'm not enjoying, I'm not liking, wish it wasn't there in my life, and meeting that energy. And when we talk about an energy, that energy, it shows up in words and actions, doesn't it? It shows up in patterns of behavior. So one of the first things that I've learned when I'm meeting a pattern of behavior in my life that I know is no longer supporting me, maybe it's I'm playing out the same old story and it's no longer serving me. One of the things that was pivotal in me letting go of trying to change it through my will was understanding that to accept something as it is, in whatever form it exists in, is not about liking it, and it's not about agreeing with it, and it's not even about understanding it. It's about accepting that it exists. And until you can do that without wanting to change it, ignore it, fix it, avoid it, deny it, because as soon as you start doing that, you're back in your mind and you're back in that lower polarity of consciousness where the vibration is like having a table tennis match, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. And there's no reprieve. And so the mind just becomes more and more overwhelmed with not knowing how to change this experience.
Yeah, it's like a knife trying to cut itself, eh?
Yeah, I think the word is like not. You feel like you're submitting to it. That's the trick, eh? But you're not actually. You're just accepting it.
You're not,
instead of
right?
submitting.
And that was the thing. I was just like, oh my God, if I accept it, it means that I think it's okay. And I don't.
Yeah.
But that's not what acceptance is about.
Yeah.
It was a pivotal shift. It was one of those moments, like, your podcast moment of, that one sentence in an hour's podcast that you remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That was the same, same for me, that, accepting something isn't about giving in or giving up. It's accepting that whatever is there, whether I like it or not. It's there. It's in front of me. I'm having an experience of it. Acknowledge that. Doesn't mean you have to like it or agree with it. And acknowledging it doesn't mean that you're, that you're giving into something.
Yeah.
What you're giving into is the fight over your free will of wanting it different. What you're giving into is the warrior in you that wants to fight for a different outcome.
So just a acknowledgement, no judgment, just understanding that whatever you have in front of you is there and you're experiencing that. I remember in HLC2, and I know you teach this all the time for anyone listening, such a good course, like such a life-changing course for me. I did it with Paul in 2014, I think. This was a long time ago for me. But it was very much what I got out of it and I put into my life is that exact thing you're talking about of, your mind, you can't solve a problem from the same mind that created it. So you need to go one step behind that. And to do that, for me, it started with, it's a paradox, right? Because it's like the Tai Chi circles, the 100-day of Tai Chi circles. It started there where I was like, I'm actually seeing some space here between my thoughts for the first time in my life. Then I was like, well, how can I do this all day, every day? How can I be more aware of what I'm thinking and feeling at all times? And I don't think you can, well, as far as I'm concerned with myself, I haven't got to a point where I can just be completely present all the time, but I'm starting to
Me neither.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a true enlightenment is, I don't know anyway, but anyway, but yeah, being able to see more. And once you open up to a little bit, it seems like it expands into seeing more and then seeing more and then going, why did I feel that? Why did I feel that? And you kind of start to be a bit more, you just see a little bit more and it starts to shift. Everything starts to shift, right? It's just,
because that space that you talk about is you, I want to bring it back to energy because I want people to understand their own consciousness and what they're experiencing. That space, that the word that you give it, space, is a shift in your vibration in that moment.
wow.
You've shifted out of that density of the third dimension that keeps you attached and keeps you looking at things through the lenses of your five senses and having a very limited view because your five senses are limited. And in that space, your consciousness, your vibration lifted, your consciousness expanded, and all of a sudden, that space that you're talking about is a vibration that you are now resonating to in your field that is giving you an expanded understanding. Your lens has gone from here to here, and all of a sudden you can see other things that are going on. It's like when you're caught up in the third dimension, it's like walking into a lift and getting off at the first floor. And all you can see and relate to is what's there on the first floor. But that's not everything that's going on. But the third dimension keeps you locked in believing that that is everything that's going on. The space that you talk about when you practice some tools, breath, slowing down, etc., opening your chakras, working with your energy, that space that you talk about is like the equivalent of getting back into the lift, and now you've gone into the penthouse. You got all the way to the top floor, and you get out, and you're like, whoa, oh my God, I had no idea that shit was happening over there. Oh my God, I had no idea that person was going through that. Oh my God, and that's happening over there, and that's happening over there. Wow. And so now all of a sudden you have an expanded understanding for what's unfolding in your reality, far more than you did when you were here down on the first floor. And with that expansion, there is a clarity. There is through that understanding, there is greater peace that comes in that space, because now you do have more of an understanding of what's going on. And this is all about, in Paul's work, it's all about coming out of the I-ness of who you are and starting to experience life through the we and the all. It's just another way to talk about how your consciousness needs to open and the vibration that you're holding in your field needs to lift in order for you to consider the we and the all versus the little I that's stuck down on the first ground floor and only seeing everything through the eyes of the I rather than the eyes of the we and the eyes of the all. And so when that vibrational shift happens, because you're making the time to create that space for it to happen, there's your first key. And when that happens, then the clarity, first of all, peace starts to come over you. You get a wave of peace. Because that spaciousness gives you a sense of peace.
Yeah. An inner joy.
And yes, and an inner joy. And it also, in time, the more you provide yourself, create that space for yourself in relationship to a challenge in your life, a difficult decision, the more you create that space for yourself in relationship to that energy, then the more guidance and clarity you will start to receive on what is the next step. And that's the difference between trying to make change or create change through the willfulness of your mind that's all about taking action and doing, and it needs to be my way, and this is how I think it should be. So how are we going to change it so it looks like how I think it needs to be? I'm getting a good experience of that in my life right now. Right? I'm getting a good dose of what I'm sharing. Versus meeting that energy, acknowledging that it's there, rather than going into battle with it, trying to change it in accordance to your agenda as to how you think it should be, but to acknowledge it's there, accept that peace between acknowledging means that you're coming out of reaction into accepting that there's an energy there that's challenging me, don't like it, wish it wasn't there, but it is. So, let's start to accept it, create some space for it to be there, meet the emotions that it triggers within me, make some space for those emotions to be there, give myself some time with it, open myself to learning what it's teaching me about me, and through that, you will receive, two things will happen. You'll either start to get really clear guidance as to what practical steps you now need to take to work with that energy, or through the very choice of creating that space and that time to acknowledge that energy and stop fighting with it, guess what? Alchemy takes place in itself. How many times have you experienced in your life a situation where you're like, but you decide that you're just going to observe it and not, not act out and react to it. You're just going to let's just see how things unfold. Let's just see how this situation unfolds, only to find that it unfolds in a higher potential than you could have ever imagined, and that if you actually got involved and started to try to control the outcome to suit you, it would have all gone belly up.
Lots.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Fuck, that's just for people listening who this is pretty out there for you. Like, I can just vouch for that so much with the starting to just create a bit of space. If it's 5 minutes a day meditation, a guided meditation, it's just so important to exactly what Joe said then with the space is just that feeling is what I just can't. I love it.
The other, like, I think it was 2 days ago, and I wouldn't say I'm an anxious person. I don't get anxious much, but I was feeling anxious driving, and about how much work we had to do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to, like, chose to do this. And I thought, okay, like I didn't feel good. I didn't like the feeling. It felt like too much. And then I just I don't know what I did, but I just switched it in the sense of what always makes me feel good is that, oh, nothing matters. We're all going to die. And that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this doesn't really matter, does it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A year from now, a week from now, it doesn't really matter. It's always going to be all right. It always is. And then that immediately, I was thinking, well, this could have cascaded into like a 10, 20-minute thing. And it ended in like 30 seconds and gave me peace. And then I had this feeling, I was like, all right, I got to do this more often. But it was just a reminder. And I feel like with practice, I will just get better at that. And whenever I start to feel overwhelmed, just flip it and like, no, I chose to be right here in all these decisions. So let's see what happens. So I think I told you last time you're on the podcast, it was like, I think the sun blows up in 400 million years or something. So I'm like, it doesn't matter, guys. What are we worrying about? Who's getting married in this country? It's like, there's always going to be these warriors out there doing that. There's always going to be those people like making those changes and really feeling it, but you don't have to change everything,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, having a reference point within yourself that helps you just to come back and put things into perspective.
Yeah, true.
And having a reference point within yourself that brings you back and centers you, because all the things that, you're talking about, all those, it's so easy for us to get distracted. So easy to get distracted and to be pulled out of our center. And it's only when we're pulled out of our center that we start to feel anxiety or stress in its many manifestations.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've got a couple of ways I do like I imagine I've got nostrils in my spiritual heart, like a big set of nostrils, and I just breathe into there. Or have you ever heard the Om Mani Padme Hum, the mantra? Yeah, they're probably my two go-tos, and I find I do them a lot in the car because they're just like, oh, they cut me off or this or that or what's going on in my head, but I can just go back, always go back to that one-pointedness, which allows me to detach. Some call it it's like some people have an argument for it being like, oh, you're just pushing everything to the side, but really, like you said, you're just going up higher to see everything.
Yeah, and you're just feeling good.
And that's, the truth in that, to have discernment over, remember, that's their judgment.
Yes, so true.
Therefore, their issue.
Yeah. What do you mean? It's not my issue?
So, whose issue is it?
Yeah.
Whoever's judging, it's their issue.
God, it's there.
Yeah, it feels nice.
Spot on.
Yeah, how nice does it feel?
Everything's their issue.
Yeah.
If they're upset with you, it's their shit, not yours.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we walk we walk between these dimensions, understanding that, our energy does affect people around us. So, whilst what someone else thinks of you is none of your business, being consciously responsible for your energy is our greatest responsibility as a soul walking this planet. Because, the energy that we hold does affect people around us. And that's, that for me is a constant learning about myself, and how, all I can, for me, it's a discernment for when I'm sitting in an energy that I know is sitting in an energy of separation within myself. And that has an effect in the field around me. And I have power to change that, because I have power to change the energy within me. If I'm then sitting in a field of energy, a soup of energy that's warm and harmonized and balanced within me, then, my job is done, because I have no control over how someone reacts to that energy and respond to that energy. But I know that when I am sitting in a soup of separation, then, because I'm responsible for that, and I'm choosing to sit in a low vibration, and I'm choosing to sit in an energy that creates a feeling of separation, that's going to be felt in my field. And if that's what I'm creating, I'm responsible for it, and therefore I am responsible for how it's rippling out into the field around me. But if I have chosen to create harmony and balance within me, and I'm sitting in a vibration that's holding harmony and balance and compassion, and I'm open-minded through my heart and my mind, then how that affects somebody else, whether it triggers them or brings them into peace, that's,
so well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess because the pain teacher sort of ties in there. Hey, like if you keep fucking up with the same mistake, say you're doing the same mistake over and over again, well, the world will send you these, when you talk about, like, say, like, I can feel good about it, but if 10 people come at you with the same thing, there's work to do. Like, and then you can be all, I guess you can try and flip the energy you want, but no one's fully enlightened. So you're going to constantly cop these little, and having to do this drill every 10 minutes, wondering, why is this constantly happening to me? So I guess the universe will constantly tell you. I guess that's then, I take that as, okay, if you do make the mistake, then feel that energy, then that gives you that stillness to reflect upon it, to not make the same mistake twice and not have to feel that energy again, hopefully.
But you know what, Cal and I even try to, I'm becoming more and more conscious. The older I get, the more and more conscious I am about even the words that I'm using, because every time I reinforce that I'm making a mistake, it's like I've done something wrong. And in truth, every choice I'm making is I'm learning from it, right or wrong. Yeah. So is it a mistake? It is what it is,
Mm.
and I'm learning from it.
Yeah, fully. Yeah,
You
that,
know, otherwise, you know, I made a really bad mistake. It's like going into judgment again. How about I learned a really big lesson,
Yeah.
that's flipping the coin, eh?
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because what is more true,
I learned a big
Yeah,
lesson.
learn to. Yeah,
right?
Unless
And
you're a
with
victim.
opening to that truth, what does it do to your field? What does it do to your energy?
yeah. Uplifts it straight away, doesn't it? Wow.
Right.
Compared to saying I made a mistake, it automatically brings it down to a level.
Mm.
It's all words,
Right.
isn't it? We're just constantly.
It's all words,
Yeah.
but you're feeling the energy of those words because words are intention, and that's what consciousness is, energy with intention.
Yeah.
And we encode the words that we speak.
Mm.
You know, they're empty. They mean nothing until we fill them with our own consciousness, which is our own energy and intention.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why you can, you know, you can hear one person say the same thing, hear another person say the exact same thing, and feel uplifted by one person and pulled down by the other.
Mm.
Because it's the consciousness, the intention with which they, you know, fill the words with.
That's amazing. Maharaji, do you know Maharaji Ji? He's Ram Dass's guru. He said this really cool lesson. He said, "All the money in the world is mine." And people were like, what the fuck? And as they started to speak, he said, "All the money in the world is mine." And this morning I was in the car and I was like, "All the money in the world is mine." And I was feeling it. And I was like, "Fuck, how good does that feel?"
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Yeah. I was gonna do a quote. I was thinking the other day, and I was like, "It's better to think you're the shit than you ain't shit."
Yeah, fully.
Like, if it's one or the other, you know
Pure
what I mean?
potential.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you get. That's.
I just love that story. It's just like, I don't know. I felt it. I was just like, fuck. He's like, it's not in a egotistical like I've got all the money so I can do all this stuff. It's all the money in the world. I am all the money in the world.
Yeah.
And fuck, I was like, it lifted me up. I felt like, oh, fuck, man, I'm not stressing about none of that shit.
Yeah. That's
I got all the money in the world and all the love in the world.
Right? Yeah. Because of the vibration he was holding.
Exactly.
Now you could have someone else speak those same words.
Yeah.
And, you know, or you will, depending on what judgment's held in you, depending on what, you know, what energy you're holding in your field, if you're resonating to the energy that person is holding when they speak those words, then you are going to law of resonance, right? You're going to vibrate on the same level of the energy that's put into those spoken words.
I got all
so
the
if
money
there's
in the world.
yeah,
I've got all the money in the world, I think. Oh, so good. I think we got a real good taste of the real encompassing Joe Rushton today.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
so good. Anyone that wants to work with, like, do the CHEK courses with Joe, highly recommend it. And all of your personal work, the Path of Light, Path of Love.
So where should they go to know more about you?
Simply joannarushton.com would be would be the first place to go. Or Insta, you know, if I can remember my Insta handle. Not too good with stuff like that, but I'm learning. Joe _Rushton _ I think.
Okay. We'll tag you in some stuff anyway. And you still doing the cooking school?
No, the cooking school has morphed into other experiences. So there will still be cooking experiences to be had, but not in the same format as Bhavana has offered them up until now.
Okay.
And so Brooklet, which is also owned by my business partners with Bhavana, Brooklet is the farm where we were doing our classes. And so they've just, in fact, they're coming into a big launch in June. They're launching 6 luxury villas on the property, along with oh, you name it. It's incredible. They've got a beautiful outdoor kitchen that will be sort of like an Argentinian grill, and we're going to have lots of different sort of fire-based food experiences. And we've got Christine Mansfield doing the opening for the event. And so there will still be food experiences offered, but under a different model, if you like.
I reckon because people don't even know, listening, you're a beast in the kitchen, and you got a cookbook called Rocket Fuel on a Budget, which is like basically how to switch into this organic lifestyle while trying to save a bit of money while doing it, really. And what I remember, a big takeaway I took from cooking from you and HLC1 was that when winter comes around, the slow cooker's out. I just chuck it on in the morning, chuck it on at night.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so good. And it makes
Carried
so much
over
sense to me.
I love it. It does. You get that in the morning. I remember you told me that, and I just was like, that's so gold. The morning. So you put it on at night, you wake up in the morning, you got breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
If you need.
And like proper protein rich amino meats instead of fucking blueberries and cereal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's just so cool, because that makes sense with ancestral living. And then I'm watching all these gut protocols come out, and it's really just that, isn't it? It's all these short cooked, slow cooked to get all those proteins that we would have had for millions of years.
Does it get cold enough up on the Sunshine Coast to get a slow cooker out?
It does. Yeah. It does it's the best time of year now onwards for the next 5 months. It's just heaven.
Nice.
It starts to cool down.
And yeah, it's just easy too, I think. Like when you told me that, and I was thinking, oh yes, I don't have to go ferment sourdoughs and shit. Like I can just, I was imagining like a 21-year-old male that's just come off like takeaway into like transitioning. Like, what do I do? Like, I think slow cooks, if you're listening, are just so huge and easy.
Best.
So yeah.
So easy.
Yeah.
So easy. Like
maybe a slow cook
one
cookbook?
pot wonder. So easy.
Yeah.
Really,
huh?
you should maybe do. I mean, I'm not telling what you should do, but a ebook, a slow cook ebook would be epic.
Yes.
I'm sure you have
A
heaps.
slow cook ebook.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's just functional.
Slow cook ebook.
Yeah.
Love it.
much
much love.
Love having you
Thanks
on.
so much for your time today.
So good.
You're welcome.
So good for everyone, including myself, to hear that and put into practice straight away. There would have been people just driving, listening to this right now, thinking, "Fuck!" Like I'm going, like it just completely changed their mindset, and that's energy through your words.
It's I feel like like with each podcast you get to work. It's like we're working with these people. Like you get. Like I know I learn every podcast. It's like, I know you said earlier on in a child therapy session, but for me, that's what they all feel like, a therapy session. This is like, you're just like, whoa, is this like,
it's so fun.
I fucking love podcasting.
Yeah.
So
It's sick. Yeah.
It is. Well, I love what you guys are doing there, and how exciting that the CHEK, because that would mean that my level 1 and level 2s would be up there with you guys.
I know.
How
good would that be?
that would be friggin' awesome. We're going to manifest that.
The sauna's there now. I'm not sure if it was there when you were here last time. And we got the ice bath.
Yeah, it was.
Now.
Yeah.
Right. Now the ice bath is there. So yeah, it's just a good little hangout place on the water. It'd be chill. And
So
very cool.
Yeah.
Can I teach from the sauna?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Teach in the sauna.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe. We'll much
You're
love.
welcome, boys.
Much love. We'll chat to you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care. Love to you both.